continue now on Weekend Prime with a look at the impact of COVID-19 on the automotive sector. Right, we are now into the second month of 2021 after a challenging 2020, which saw many industries battle with the limitations of the national lockdown, which has continued into this year. Now, the automotive industry is no different. On average, the motoring industry contributes to 6.8% of the national GDP, and it was hit considerably hard during the lockdown, level 5 and 4. But how is it doing now? We're joined once again by automotive thought leader and industry expert John Mienie, who is the CEO of AutoTrader South Africa, to give us an update on how the industry is doing, as well as unpack on the 2020 automotive year and what to expect in 2021. George, good to have you with us. Now, when we were talking about this last year, we were actually analyzing the trend, saying, well, the Reserve Bank is dropping the interest rate. People are not able to actually go on the floors and look at cars, but they're going more online. Now we actually have the real data of how people behave. So look at 2020 and what it represented. How would you summarize it?
Well, thanks, Thabo. 2020 represented an unprecedented year of what we are referring to at AutoTrader as an accelerated evolution to new technologies. I think the lockdown was the catalyst in driving many of these accelerated changes. Many car dealers and automotive businesses had to really look at their businesses critically and ask themselves, how do I trade more online? How do I automate my internal systems? How do I automate systems and make it easier for the consumer? The term that we're using to refer to this accelerated evolution is called automotive digital retailing, and it's the process that ties the online world to the offline world in a seamless, frictionless manner, so that there's hardly any barriers between going online, searching for a car, comparing, and then actually going into the showroom. And we realized that the data was showing us that dealers and the industry itself was gearing itself up for more of the same into 2021.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that I could be able to be sitting in the comfort of my own home looking at the computer, but still get a real sense of what the car actually looks like on the inside, and maybe even get a 360-degree look, a view of what the car is without me actually having left home.
Absolutely, Thabo. We're very fast approaching that world because, what was the innovation curve in maybe 3 to 5 years was accelerated in 2020 by the national lockdown and the coronavirus. And, while it was a tough year, a turbulent year, I think it has brought a very clear focus on online retailing, and for cars, it's no different.
Yeah. We said two things were possible here. Either what could happen is people would want to trade down. So those with big German cars, big machines, would want to go down and buy something a little bit smaller during the pandemic. Or because of the interest rate having dropped, those who otherwise would not be able to afford those big cars now would be able to get into that market. Which of the two actually happened?
Well, I think the interest rate played a big part in easing the financial pressures on car buyers. We definitely didn't see the appetite of car buyers drop off. Sadly, the new car sales world was under massive amounts of pressure last year after a spate of price increases, and this comes off the back of a weakening rand, as well as import taxes on new vehicles, and there was an 18% year-on-year drop in January in new car sales. But consumers are flocking to used car, and that's what we saw was the theme the whole way through 2020. As a matter of fact, we saw somewhere between 40 and 55% increase in traffic and conversion to AutoTrader's website during the course of 2020, and it hasn't slowed down. So the interest rates have eased the pressures on the consumers, but they're still flocking to used cars.
Is there enough stock in the sector to keep up with the demand?
That's a very interesting question, Thabo, because I've said all along that without new car sales stimulation or retail stimulation, we could get ourselves into an aging fleet scenario in South Africa because the cars just age more and more and more. So to answer your question, eventually, no. The answer to that question would be no, there wouldn't be enough stock. Right now, dealers are feeling the pressure. They're battling to find good, clean stock, which is holding prices up. You would think that tough economic times would bring prices down, but because of the flock towards used cars, we've seen prices remain relatively stable. And in time, if we don't stimulate new car sales, we will see a tougher economy with an aging fleet in the future.
Yeah. It's by and large an open world now, although, we were still under some degree of restrictions under lockdown level 3. But there's a lot of economic trade that is going on. January has just gone now. We've seen the delivery of the vaccines, which I'm sure brings some degree of confidence back into the sector. Give us your insights. What are the consumers likely to see? What is the indication that we will find in 2021?
Well, Thabo, I think the fact of the matter is the world has changed permanently. And because of the evolution or acceleration into a digital future, many businesses are going to stay with the online retail technologies that they've built. So I don't see anything majorly different, except perhaps as the vaccine gets rolled out and as we build immunity to this virus, that we'll see a lot more people inside dealerships. But I don't think that it's going to reverse the trend in terms of accelerated digital car buying. As a matter of fact, we're seeing more 8% people spending 8% more time per search than what they ever have on AutoTrader's website. And it's not slowing down. As a matter of fact, the total visits to AutoTrader's website during the year of January is sitting at 9 million visits, which is up 42% from last year. So I don't think the trend is going to reverse, even if the vaccine brings us to immunity.
Now, of course, we've seen this week a big announcement around Ford putting a multi-billion rand investment into the country. How is the sector receiving that, and what is likely going to be the impact of that investment?
Love this topic, Thabo, because it tells us quite a bit. Ford last month decided to cease production in Brazil after a century of building cars there, closing 3 factories and cutting 5,000 jobs. Now, while that's not a thing to praise about, Ford has decided to eliminate thousands of jobs in Europe by a sweeping $11 billion global reorganization and culled a lot of their operations in Europe. But what they've decided to do is spend money in South Africa. And this alone creates about 2,000 jobs in South Africa. But they're not alone, because Toyota also announced that they'll be investing around 2.8 billion rand and subsequently then creating about 1,500 jobs. So, it's got to tell you something about the appetite for investment in South Africa if such large OEMs are deciding to invest in our country.
Now, of course, after enjoying a bit of a breather as far as the fuel price is concerned, we are beginning to see some kind of increase that was announced last week. How does this play out in the sector? Are you concerned at all that this will discourage shoppers in the short term?
Yes and no, Thabo, because any fuel price change, especially upward, will discourage shoppers. And the fuel price, we must bear in mind, that is still recovering from significant lows during lockdown last year. But that's not an excuse. The future of the automotive industry has to be a greener future, which is electric vehicles. So, I'm hoping that we have an EV future, and the government has to do 2 things to help us, and that is incentivize imports by lowering import taxes on electric vehicles, as well as incentivize OEMs to upscale their plants to be able to build electric vehicles. And then we've got to protect our export industry, because the risk is that we lose our export industry. 60% of our car production in South Africa goes out of South Africa. And the UK has already said that they're bringing their deadline back from 2030, where they will no longer accept ICE vehicles or internal combustion engine vehicles. So the fuel price, in the short term is important, but in the long term, I think helps us get to a greener future anyway.
A quick one, George, before I let you go. I mean, what's the future of electric cars? Are we likely to see Elon Musk's vehicle making a showing here in South Africa soon?
I'm hoping he's even watching this. He's a Pretoria guy, so I'm hoping he's watching this, because we did some research last year, and our research showed very clearly that South Africans have a massive appetite for Tesla. But that being said, if Elon Musk doesn't bring his vehicles here, then the other OEMs are going to stand to benefit, because consumers want electric vehicles in South Africa, believe it or not.
George, always good catching up, man. Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming through.
Thank you.
That's George Mienie there, who's the CEO of AutoTrader South Africa, giving us an update on how the industry is looking for 2021.